The battlefield isn't just a place where fists fly or weapons clash. It begins first and foremost in the mind. If you want to outsmart your enemies before they even think of moving, you have to master their mindset before they master theirs. It's a mental war, and the ones who dominate it don't wait around to react. They anticipate, they predict, they control the narrative before the first move is even made. This kind of mastery isn't accidental. It's built from ruthless observation, intense focus, and an unrelenting commitment to understanding every detail about those who oppose you. You have to study them like a predator studies its prey. Every weakness, every hesitation, every pattern in their behavior becomes ammunition in your arsenal. You watch how they breathe, how they shift their weight, how their eyes flicker when they lie or hesitate. This level of awareness isn't for the faint-hearted. It requires discipline that burns away distractions and sharpens your senses until you're living in a constant state of readiness. When you've mastered the mind, you own the battlefield long before any physical confrontation takes place. You see moves forming before they manifest, you hear plans whispered before they're shouted, and you know the enemy's next step as clearly as your own. This is not about being lucky or guessing. It's about putting in the work to create certainty in chaos. You don't leave room for surprises because you've already mapped out their options and their weaknesses. The mental edge is brutal because it forces your opponent into a corner where every move they make is predictable, every strategy they employ is anticipated, and every step forward is met with calculated resistance. It's like playing chess with someone who's always thinking 3 moves ahead, while your opponent is stuck, reacting to the last move you made. That kind of advantage crushes morale and breaks spirits before a single blow is dealt. The key is to become obsessed with control, not just of the situation, but of your own mind. You can't afford to be distracted by emotions, doubts, or second-guessing. You need to train yourself to stay detached yet hyper-focused, to think with ruthless clarity even when everything around you is chaos. Your mind becomes your weapon, sharper than any sword or gun, and far deadlier. You learn to listen more than you speak, to observe more than you act, and to hold your patience like a loaded gun waiting for the perfect moment. That patience, coupled with unshakable confidence, gives you the power to move before the enemy even knows the fight has begun. Mastering the mind means you're never caught off guard. You recognize the subtle signs, the twitch of a muscle, the hesitation in a voice, the shift in energy, and you react not just swiftly, but preemptively. It's a level of awareness that feels almost supernatural because you're tapping into patterns most people overlook, reading between the lines of every action and reaction. The enemy might think they're hidden, protected by secrecy or deception, but you've already cracked their code because your mind never stops working, never stops hunting, never stops preparing for the battle ahead. You make the first move in their minds so thoroughly that when the real battle starts, they're already too late. You don't wait to be attacked. You don't wait to see their hand. You dismantle their plans before they can even set them in motion. The true power comes from this relentless mental dominance, this refusal to be reactive or passive. You don't just fight harder or longer. You fight smarter and earlier. You shape the battlefield from the shadows, orchestrate the chaos silently, and force your enemies into a position where defeat is inevitable because they were never truly in control to begin with. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a weapon sharper than any blade, a shield stronger than armor. In a world obsessed with noise, shouting, and desperate attempts to be heard, the one who masters silence gains an unbreakable advantage. When everyone else is busy talking, exposing their plans and weaknesses, you remain calm and still, absorbing every piece of information without giving anything away. Silence is your cloak of invisibility. It hides your intentions, your strengths, your fears, It keeps your enemies guessing and off balance. While they rush to fill the void with words, you watch, listen, and prepare your next move in perfect secrecy. Silence forces others to reveal themselves because humans are wired to fill gaps with assumptions. When you say nothing, your enemies project their fears and doubts onto you, and those projections become weapons you can use against them. You learn to use silence as a strategic pause, a moment where others overcommit, overexpose, or make mistakes. Silence isn't passive, it's a deadly kind of active waiting. It's holding your power in reserve, gathering intelligence, and striking when they least expect it. The quieter you are, the more you see. The more you see, the more control you have. It's not just about withholding information. It's about creating a vacuum where your enemy's own noise becomes their downfall. They reveal too much in their need to be heard, showing their weaknesses, their fears, their impatience. In contrast, your silence is a wall no one can breach, a fortress that cannot be invaded. The art of silence is knowing when to speak and when to let your actions do the talking. It's in this restraint that true power lies, because once you break that silence, your words land with precision and weight. Silence also serves as a mirror, reflecting the intentions and emotions of others back at them. When you refuse to respond to provocations, insults, or manipulations, you deny your enemy the reaction they crave. Without a reaction, their attacks lose their power. They begin to question themselves. That hesitation you cultivate through silence becomes their weakness. They doubt, they falter, and you seize the moment to advance. Silence creates a psychological pressure that's invisible but crushing. It's the tension before the storm, the calm before the strike, and the stillness that makes the explosion more devastating. People fear silence because it forces them to confront their own thoughts and insecurities, and you turn that fear into a weapon. Mastering silence requires discipline because your instinct will always be to fill the space with noise, defense mechanisms, justifications, anger. But real strength is shown in the ability to stay quiet when the world screams at you. You learn to listen to what isn't being said, to read the gaps between words, to decode the unsaid messages hiding beneath surface conversations. This skill puts you miles ahead because most people never stop talking long enough to understand what's really happening around them. They miss the subtle cues, the shifts in energy, the unspoken alliances and betrayals. Silence sharpens your senses and trains you to see clearly through the fog of confusion. When you harness silence, you control the pace of the game. You decide when the noise begins and when it ends. You hold the power of timing, and timing is everything. In the chaos of constant chatter, your silence stands out like a beacon of strength and confidence. It commands attention without demanding it. It forces respect without begging for it. The enemy may try to break your silence, but they'll only reveal more of themselves in the process, digging their own graves while you stand quietly above them, watching, waiting, ready to strike with the force of a storm they never saw coming. Everyone carries an ego. It's the fragile armor that shields their insecurities and fuels their confidence. But ego is a double-edged sword. It can be the spark that ignites greatness or the weight that drags a person into their own downfall. The rare tactic to outsmart your enemies before they move is to understand their ego better than they do and use it against them. You don't need to smash it outright. That would only make them fight harder. Instead, you exploit it carefully, like a surgeon wielding a scalpel. You feed their pride just enough to make them overreach, to blind them to their weaknesses. You let them believe they are in control, that they are the masters of the game, while you quietly tighten the noose around their neck. This isn't about arrogance, it's about calculation. You watch how their pride manifests through their words, their actions, their need to dominate conversations or situations. You observe the points where their confidence becomes cockiness, where their belief in their own invincibility clouds their judgment. These are the cracks in their armor, the openings waiting for your strike. You provoke them subtly, planting ideas that inflate their ego, baiting them into moves that appear bold but are actually reckless. They chase after illusions of power because their ego demands it, and in that chase, they leave themselves vulnerable, exposed. You stay patient, waiting for the exact moment when their arrogance turns into a fatal mistake. The beauty of this tactic lies in its invisibility. Your enemy never sees the trap coming because it's hidden beneath their own self-importance. They're so busy convincing themselves of their superiority that they fail to notice how you're dismantling their foundation. You use their ego like a weapon, turning their strengths into weaknesses and their confidence into their greatest liability. It's psychological warfare at its finest. No brute force needed, just quiet manipulation and cold calculation. They become prisoners of their own mind, their decisions no longer their own but puppets dancing to the rhythm you set. This tactic requires patience and discipline because you can't rush the process. Ego feeds on immediate gratification, on quick wins and flashy victories. You don't give them that. Instead, you play the long game, slowly eroding their stability, making them doubt themselves at the edges while appearing invincible in public. You watch their facade crack in private moments, their frustration growing as the gap between who they think they are and who they really are widens. That internal conflict consumes them faster than any external attack ever could. Exploiting ego is about control, not destruction. You don't want a bitter enemy. You want one who's blind, confused, and predictable. When their ego blinds them, they become easy to read, easy to predict, and easy to outmaneuver. You use their arrogance as a roadmap, guiding your moves with precision. Every calculated jab, every well-timed provocation pushes them closer to self-destruction. The more they try to prove themselves, the deeper they fall into your trap. In the end, controlling an enemy's ego means mastering the art of invisibility. They see themselves as the hunter, but in reality, they're the prey, caught in a web they don't even know exists. You don't need to shout or threaten. Your power lies in knowing when to stay silent and when to strike. You manipulate the unseen strings of pride and arrogance until their empire collapses from within, all while maintaining your own unshakable calm. This is the true mark of a strategist who doesn't just win battles, but wins minds and hearts without firing a single shot. Confusion is a powerful weapon. When wielded correctly, it turns the enemy's mind into a battlefield more chaotic than the physical fight itself. Creating illusions is about crafting a reality so tangled that your opponent can no longer trust their own senses or judgments. You don't just confront them head-on, you warp their perception, making them question what's real and what's a trap. This psychological fog clouds their decision-making, slows their reactions, and forces hesitation, which is fatal in any conflict. The enemy is no longer fighting you. They're fighting shadows, doubts, and their own paranoia. When you create illusions, you pull the strings behind the scenes, orchestrating confusion that cripples their ability to act decisively. To create illusions is to become a master of deception, but it's more than just lying or hiding information. It's about planting carefully designed seeds of doubt that grow into entire forests of uncertainty. You craft fake narratives, subtle signs, misleading clues, all designed to mislead your enemy into taking the wrong path. They chase ghosts, react to false threats, and waste energy trying to untangle the web you've spun. Your moves become unpredictable not because you're random, but because you're hidden behind layers of misinformation that keep your true intentions invisible. The more tangled the illusion, the more your enemy loses grip on reality, and the more power you gain over the battlefield. This tactic requires a deep understanding of your enemy's mindset, fears, and biases. You exploit what they want to believe or fear most, planting illusions that tap into those vulnerabilities. If they fear betrayal, you hint at disloyalty among their ranks. If they crave control, you create scenarios where control slips away just out of reach. You leverage their expectations and use them against themselves, turning their own minds into a maze with no clear exit. As they struggle to find clarity, their confidence crumbles and they begin second-guessing every move. Doubt becomes their enemy's sharpest weapon, and you wield it with precision. Illusions also serve to protect your real plans. While the enemy is distracted chasing false leads, your true strategy moves forward unnoticed. This creates a battlefield where the enemy is always reacting, never initiating, forever one step behind. They expend their strength on phantom threats, while you conserve yours for the decisive strike. This kind of psychological dominance is exhausting to the opponent because it drains their mental energy, leaving them vulnerable not just physically, but emotionally and cognitively as well. Mastering the art of illusions means embracing complexity and subtlety. You don't reveal your hand all at once. You drip, feed false information, creating a narrative that seems plausible but is completely manufactured. You use symbols, rumors, and half-truths that spread like wildfire, taking on a life of their own. Your enemy, desperate for clarity, grabs onto these illusions as if they were lifelines, not realizing they're sinking deeper into quicksand. The beauty of this tactic is that it's hard to prove or disprove, making the enemy trapped in a state of uncertainty that erodes their ability to trust even their closest allies. This mental battlefield is a war of patience and control. You don't rush the chaos, you nurture it, feed it, let it grow until it consumes your enemy's mind. When confusion reigns, hesitation follows, and hesitation is the moment you strike. The illusions you create become a cage, invisible yet impenetrable, holding your enemy prisoner in their own fractured reality. You become the unseen puppeteer, pulling the strings while they flail blindly in the dark, lost in a labyrinth of your own design. In this way, you win not by brute force, but by mastering the subtle art of deception and psychological dominance. To move like water and strike like lightning is to embody fluidity and sudden power in one unstoppable force. Water doesn't fight the shape of its container. It adapts, flows, and finds the path of least resistance. It's patient and relentless, able to wear down the hardest rock through persistence and subtlety. Lightning, on the other hand, is swift, precise, and devastating, a sudden flash that leaves no room for reaction. Combining these qualities means becoming unpredictable, flexible, and striking with overwhelming speed when the moment is right. This tactic isn't about brute strength or rigid plans. It's about mastering change, embracing chaos, and becoming impossible to anticipate. Unpredictability is your greatest weapon. When your enemy tries to analyze you to map out your next move, they find nothing but shifting currents and sudden flashes of action. They prepare for one attack, but you've already changed course. You don't get stuck in one mindset or strategy. You learn to read the battlefield like a river reads its banks, flowing around obstacles, seeping into cracks, and exploding in sudden bursts of power where they least expect it. This constant movement keeps your enemies off balance, uncertain, and exhausted from trying to keep up. They waste energy guessing while you conserve yours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Adapting like water means you don't cling to pride or ego. You accept that plans will change, obstacles will arise, and conditions will shift. Instead of resisting, you adjust quickly, finding new angles of attack and new ways to exploit weaknesses. Flexibility becomes your armor, It allows you to respond to threats in real time, turning disadvantages into opportunities. You flow around their defenses instead of smashing into them head-on. This kind of strategic adaptability is a silent but deadly force because it makes you impossible to pin down or predict. Striking like lightning means seizing the moment with absolute decisiveness. You don't hesitate, second, guess, or hold back. When you see the opening, you move fast and hard, delivering a blow so powerful it shatters resistance. This strike is not reckless but calculated, built on patience, timing, and acute awareness of the enemy's vulnerabilities. Lightning doesn't warn before it strikes. It simply hits with overwhelming force and leaves devastation in its wake. Your attacks carry that same energy, sudden, precise, and devastating. You break their rhythm, shatter their confidence, and force them into retreat before they can regroup. Mastering this duality requires discipline and mental toughness. You train yourself to be comfortable with uncertainty, to embrace change rather than fear it. You develop the patience to wait silently like water pooling behind a dam, knowing that the right moment will come. And when it does, you unleash the full force of your power like a lightning bolt. Quick, fierce, and unstoppable. This balance between calm persistence and explosive action gives you an edge that few can match. This tactic also demands constant self-awareness. You have to know when to flow and when to strike, when to adapt and when to hold firm. It's a dance between aggression and restraint, chaos and control. You become a force of nature, unpredictable and unstoppable, wearing down your enemy with steady pressure before delivering a blow they never see coming. The more you practice this, the more your presence alone unsettles opponents, because they never know what you'll do next or when you'll do it. Ultimately, moving like water and striking like lightning means refusing to be trapped by patterns or expectations. You become a living paradox, soft yet deadly, patient yet fierce, flexible yet unyielding. Your enemies try to catch you, but you slip through their grasp like a river around stones, then crash down on them with the sudden power of a storm they can't survive. This is the art of staying ahead, the science of unpredictability, and the key to winning battles before they even begin. In the game of power and survival, the ultimate advantage lies not in brute strength, but in mastering the unseen forces that shape every battle: mind, silence, ego, illusion, and movement. To command respect and outsmart enemies before they even make their move, you must become a strategist of the highest order, thinking several steps ahead while they're stuck reacting. This is about cultivating mental dominance, using silence to mask your true intentions, exploiting your enemy's weaknesses with surgical precision, weaving illusions that cloud their judgment, and embodying the relentless adaptability of water paired with the sudden strike of lightning. True power is not given. It is seized through relentless discipline, patience, and unwavering focus. When you internalize these rare tactics, you don't just fight the battle. You win the war before it even begins.